Hello again everyone and welcome to Module 3. Now hopefully Module 2 gave you a little bit more information in regards to the setup of your session, and hopefully that will allow you to run that session a lot more smoothly. I have seen sessions previously run where there has been no thought into protocols or the setup, and yeah, they weren't particularly good. Anyway, let's get on. We then come to the interactions and tools of your session. In this module, I suppose we're looking at really the bells and whistles of your session and the way we keep people engaged. We have to remember that with Zoom sessions, they can be rather dull if we're just listening and watching. So you got to the point now where you've planned your session, you know what you want to take and what you want to cover, but how do we make it that little bit more interactive? How do we keep people engaged within it? In this module, we're going to look at some of the bells and whistles of Zoom and outside tools that we can use to incorporate into the session and make it come alive a little more. So the first point is around the use of video in your sessions. When we wanted to show a video in a session before, it was fairly easy. We would just display it on the board and we'd all watch, comment, etc. But Zoom makes things a little bit more challenging, as I suppose we're really having to battle with bandwidth issues, quality and access to the video. Videos are certainly useful in sessions and they can be used. However, we need to think about how we're going to incorporate them. But think about this, if we get all attendees to watch it, you then go back to that thing of having dead time in your session whilst you wait for them all to go ahead and watch the video. You can of course share the video over your Zoom connection, and if I'm honest, I've had mixed results doing this. You will need to then mess about with your system settings and make sure that it's configured to run and share the video. But then I suppose there's no guarantee in that it will be delivered successfully. One thing that we can do is host the video online and point the attendees to it, and you can do that quite simply by posting a link in the chat function. The good thing about this is that it is linked to our Training Hub YouTube account, and therefore we can list these videos as private, meaning only the attendees on the training get to view them. This will certainly help with any copyright issues or videos that we don't actually own. If you are going to use video in any of your sessions, do consider the best way of accessing it, and this may come back to again sharing it beforehand in your prior communication. Polls are a great way to interact with your audience. They are great for quick responses and closed questions. They're also great for gaining opinion in a room. Sometimes it can be quite onerous going around to every single person when we need a quick answer. A poll is a really good way of doing it. We may want to find out something on what our audience understands about a topic, then ask them through a poll. This, as a facilitator, will give you instant results and allow you to tailor any feedback or direct your discussion of where you want it to go in that session. For polls to work in a session, you are going to need to plan where you want them, and one little thing I do is then just add them onto the slide so it reminds me to bring it up at that point. Now, a simple little note on your PowerPoint will be suffice. You will also need to add them to that particular meeting. They will not appear when you open up your meeting. Your poll will not be there unless you've set them up in the diary. So again, Nori will be used to do this and help you get that set up. Once you've set that up and you then access the meeting, the polls will be displayed and ready to go. I have added a link below on a good Zoom guide that I found around using polls, so do check that out. Breakout rooms are great for managing discussion elements of your training. You know, being able to communicate with each other and discuss aspects is really important, and we do learn a lot from each other. So to have these in your training sessions is quite useful. If you've got a larger group, then the use of a breakout room will certainly help manage the numbers and allow you to place members of that group into smaller groups. It also gives people an opportunity to get their voice heard. I suppose the difficulty, particularly if you do not know the group, is that if you allow Zoom to set your groups up automatically, then you don't really have any control over who goes in which room. As the facilitator, you can then jump into each of the rooms, you can broadcast messages, and you will have full control over each of them. If you know your audience, you may want to work out the rooms prior to your session when you're setting it up, and you can decide then on who goes where. But I suppose you are then going to have to set up the breakout room and organize everyone into those particular rooms, so that might be a little bit time consuming, so just be aware of that. And I think the final point around breakout rooms is use them when you really need them. If you have a question that you want discussing that can be done really quickly, ask yourself whether there is really any real point to go into all the hassle of setting up a breakout room. You know, sometimes I use them when I've got 2 to 3 questions that I want the group to work through. But then we come to whiteboards and Jamboards, and if I'm honest with you, I have limited use of this feature. The whiteboard does allow everyone to see it. It allows them to share notes on and add their thoughts to it. One example I've seen of where it was used was through the facilitator taking notes to points raised while listening to the group's feedback. But thinking about that, there is no reason why you couldn't have a clean PowerPoint page that you're sharing and do this on that. The functionality is the sharing aspect, and this is where Jamboards come into it, which is also a Google tool. A similar thing to the whiteboard, I suppose, but it is separate of Zoom, so it is outside of Zoom. You would set it up prior and then you could share that link again through the chat option. What I would say is, do consider these tools, as they do have their merits if used correctly, and they are a great way to build interaction into your session. Again, everything can be saved afterwards and shared with everyone after the session is finished. And the fifth idea is on Google Forms, and I suppose we use Google quite a lot, and the forms are another tool, I suppose, in that we can all work on them and allow us to share things quite easily. We are using them currently as part of our training sessions in the form of evaluation forms, and we're sharing them with the participants, and they can carry out their evaluations virtually. The good thing about forms is that they give you analytics. So if you were to pre-design a questionnaire and send it out, or if it was prior, during or after, it would give you a very interactive response with all the analytics included within it. The Google Forms aspect will certainly work and are a good feature to think about bringing into your session.